I know we're part of the way through the My Career series, and I know that's the video you'd probably be expecting to be released next on the channel, but I had the inkling and the feeling and the urge to make another rebuild video, so I thought, what team out there would I most say needs a rebuild at the moment? Well, we've done Barcelona this year, which at the time of recording is very close to becoming my first video on the channel to reach 1,000 views. I mean, if you want to help it along the way to 1,000 views, there'll be a link up in the top corner somewhere. But we've done Barcelona. We did Chelsea with the beta save, kind of. It wasn't a rebuild, it was a normal series, but we've done Chelsea. We did Manchester United last year. We did a bunch of clubs last year as well, and I've got a bunch of clubs on the list to rebuild this year as well. But I thought, let's just go with one of the big hitters. Let's go with one of the ones that I really, really want to see rebuilt, that I think we can all agree needs it, and that club is Liverpool. How are we doing, everybody, and welcome to this Liverpool rebuild here on Football Manager 2023. I'm Stu. Thank you for joining me in today's video, where we're going to be doing just that. We are going to be trying to take Liverpool back to... It feels a bit harsh to say back to their former glory. That's what I was going to say. But actually, Liverpool have been a very, very good football team for a decent amount of time now. They've won the Premier League for the first time in the last... Well, in very recent memory. They've won the Champions League as well. They got to another Champions League final or two. Did they get to two Champions League? I can't remember. But my point is, they actually are still a very, very good team. But they're on the decline. They're definitely on the decline. They've had a couple of seasons here and there under Jurgen Klopp where they've almost run out of energy. They've run out of gas. And that's because the club just haven't refreshed the squad enough. The team is very much the same team as that one that finished second the year before they won the Premier League. And remember, they won the Premier League in the COVID season. So it's been a little while, actually. But that squad is basically the same squad. It's not been refreshed that much. They've had one player here or there added. And to be honest, it did kind of work for them. But I think we're starting to see now it not work so much. You watch next season, I'll go and absolutely blow everyone away. But we are going to try and refresh the team quite a bit. We're going to try and make them a little bit fresher, a little bit newer, a little bit more dynamic maybe. We're going to try and do a bit more of an overhaul than we normally do on rebuilds. We'll try and move some players on. We'll try and bring some decent players in. And hopefully we'll have a lovely time. Now, my career. I know I've put this video in probably a bit of a mean spot considering what happened in the last episode of my career. If you haven't watched it, by the way, I will put a link up here somewhere and you can watch what happened. But the next video on the channel will definitely be my career. We're going to put this video in. We're going to intersperse the rebuilds over the course of the year. We're not going to put them in close succession. Obviously, we did one before this save started. We've had what's happened in my career. I felt like doing one now as well, so we're going to kind of just play it by ear. But yeah, apologies if you're waiting to see what happens in my career, all 12 of you. Hopefully you forgive me, and hopefully you're excited to see what we can do here at Liverpool. But at Liverpool we are, and also, I mean, before we do anything, there's one thing I need to check. How many England caps do I have? I have 42 England caps and 2 goals with the coaching badges that I've got and the experience that I've got, which is matched, obviously, to the club that I am at. 42 caps and 2 goals. I would say probably either a central defender or a midfielder. If I was going to guess my position, it'd be one of those. I would go with that. I've never really guessed that before, but I'm going to make that a thing. If I ever do a rebuild, we're going to see what this comes up as. 42 caps, 2 goals. I wonder what club I played for. I'm assuming I don't get to see what club I played for. I'm assuming I don't have that. And there won't be anything like that. It won't have made that for me, but not that any of that's important. But what is important is the squad. Bunch of injuries to start the season with. Alisson is out for 3 to 6 weeks. We've got Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain out to up to 4 months. Kelleher's out for 3 months. And Jota's out for 3 months as well. So we are going to have to do without those guys. One interesting thing which I've not thought about, and to be honest I'm not that bothered about, is the fact that the new signing of Cody Gakpo has not gone through in the database yet. I'm okay with that, because we're starting at the beginning of the season before Gakpo had signed. So it doesn't bother me too much that we do not have him. I might choose to sign him. Who knows? But looking at the base Liverpool squad, it's a very good team. We've got Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, both in their 30s, probably at the peak of their powers at this point, on astronomical amounts of money. Alisson, one of the best goalkeepers, if not the best goalkeeper in the world. There's a few that can probably claim that, but he's definitely in the running for it. We've got Luis Diaz as well, who looks absolutely sensational. Thiago as well, who I think most would agree has probably not been the signing that Liverpool hoped he would be. He's a fantastic player, but he's not really worked for him. Andrew Robertson, who I'd say, along with Trent, both criminally underrated in FM. 3.5 stars. I mean, he's one of the best left backs in the world. I'm putting it out there. And Trent, although he's not been brilliant at 23 years old, I'd expect him to have 5-star potential. But alas, he does not. Fabinho, one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, in my opinion. Joel Matip, very capable defender. But there are some players in this squad that we can definitely do something about. I've just said Joel Matip is a very capable defender. I think we could do better than him. Same with Naby Keita. Naby Keita came with a good reputation from RB Leipzig, but hasn't really set the world on fire. He should be a really good player, but there's just something about him that hasn't clicked at Liverpool. Diogo Jota's fantastic. We'll definitely keep him. Konate is a good option to have in defence. I would definitely have him over Matip, just in terms of longevity and things like that. Joe Gomez is a weird one because I feel like he should be better than that by now, but I actually think he has disappointed a little bit, but he's had some moments where he's fantastic. I mean, his long throws are exceptional. He's relatively quick. He's a good option all across the back line. He's very, very good. Tsimikas as well, very good option, but again, could we upgrade that maybe? There's a lot of players here we need to look at and think, can we do better than? But there's also some players that we need to think about trying to get into the squad altogether. One of those players, I would say, is Darwin Núñez. I don't know whether he's going to be a starter for us. I don't know, because obviously we're going to simulate forward. I don't know whether the game will put him in as a starter for us. Definitely got the potential. He's definitely a decent player. 6'2". He feels like he's taller than that in real life. He feels like he's like the height of Peter Crouch. And, I mean, his first touch being a 10, I'd agree with that. But he is a very quick player. He's a great option to have in the squad. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But we need to mould this team into a squad to play. And then once we've done that, we can have a look and see what we can work with. Okay, positionally at least, this is probably a fair representation of what Liverpool currently play, depending on who's available, obviously. Backline, I think, is pretty solid. Obviously, Alexander-Arnold is just an attacking menace. These two definitely would be the other way around, actually, because I think Virgil plays more on the left. But this is a rough approximation of what they would do. Henderson tends to be on this side to help cover for Trent, who's just going to be an attacking menace down here, and Salah cutting in. And you can see that there's definitely a weakness on this side. This is typically the formation that I go with. I'd like not to go with this formation with this save. I'd like to go with something a little bit different, which is why I'm currently looking at this. Now, I don't use 3 at the back or 5 at the back, however you look at it, but I kind of want to give it a go, and I'm kind of tempted to give it a go. Oh, God. In this rebuild, I am very, very tempted. It is very, very attacking. In terms of the 3 players at the front here and Trent getting forward just with absolute careless abandon. I mean, we might put him onto support just to try and curtail it a little bit, but still, he is going to be running up and down here like a menace. But we've got the 3 defenders down here who are going to be doing a job. We might even turn whoever's on this side to a wide centre-back just so they actually step out here and cover this area a little bit. But we have got whoever's on this bit here will be defending. At the moment, it's currently Jordan Henderson. Fabinho, I mean, Fabinho can work as a defender, to be honest with you, but we put Fabinho there and we put someone else in the middle. Let's say we bring in, where is he? Ibrahim Konate. Konate comes in. We have that, I think, rock solid 3-man defence. All of them are 6'4" and above. We've got 2 very good players down the wing. We've got Salah and Diaz who are assisting out here, but we don't even have to have it to. I can't speak. It doesn't have to be these 2. We could put Firmino back and have Salah be the one who's looking to score the goals. Luis Diaz, we could even have being either this position or even the striker. We could train him up and he could do a job on either of those. His stats are fantastic. I mean, it's a bit of a waste on his dribbling. Well, no, he's dribbling actually. It's not a waste on anything. I was going to say it's a waste on his crossing, but I think I misread earlier because his crossing's only 12. He would be sensational there actually in either of those positions. So I am tempted to go with this. I'm not 100% committed to it, but it is a temptation. Things I think we would need to do if we were to commit to this system, and I'm not saying that we're going to, but if we were to, I think things we'd need to look at. There we go. So, central midfielder, probably more the playmaker, but I wouldn't be against bringing in another defensive-minded midfielder, sorry, and central defender as well. In the forward line, obviously, Diogo Jota will be in and around the first team when he's fit. Obviously, he's not at the moment, but he can play as a striker. He can play in the attacking midfield role, and if we decide to go with wingers, he can do that. So, I mean, if he was starting, we've got Alisson in, so let's put him in. If he was starting, it'd probably be for Luis Diaz. And we might even have Mo Salah playing as the shadow striker, potentially, because he'd do a decent job there. And then maybe we would have Diogo Jota play as a deep line forward on attack, dropping deep to give these guys space to work into. Because that deep line forward, in my experience, sometimes does work as a bit of a playmaking forward, and it can do a really good job there. But looking at the other forward options, we've got Harvey Elliott, who's decent enough, 2.5 star. He can do a job in that attacking midfield role. Luis Diaz, he's got the stats for it. We'd need to train him, but he could do a job there, or a striker. And Darwin Núñez, he would be a very different option as a striker. I think his best role as a striker is pressing forward. It is indeed. But he would be decent enough. He's a quick option as well. He would definitely be an off-the-bench option at the moment, I think. Don't think we trust him to get the job done. But we definitely need to do that. I also think in the nicest way, James Milner is going to be a utility player. So we would need to bring someone in to be the other right back to bring in as well. We know that Fabinho can play right back. Can he play right wing back? He actually could. So it might not be something we absolutely desperately need to do, but it is an option as well. I don't know whether Joe Gomez can play as a wing back as well. He kind of can. He's not brilliant at it, but he can do a job there. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. So if we commit to this system, and I'm not saying for a second that I am, but if we commit to going with this system, we need 1, 2, 3, at least 3 players. Probably, if we're not considering Harvey Elliott, possibly 4 as well. And I'd even go a step further as to say, Roberto Firmino is wanted by a couple of teams. He's a good player, but I would be willing to let him go. We'd need a decent amount of money to come in for him, but I would be willing to let him go. So if Firmino went as well, all of a sudden we're looking for another couple of strikers. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's at least 5 players, possibly another central defender as well. But I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be against it at all. Bear in mind, however, Jota is out for up to 3 months. Alisson should be back for the start of the season. Kelleher is also out for 3 months. So that means our backup goalkeeper is Adrian. I think we can cope with that. I think that's fine. We do also have Arthur as well. Arthur is a decent player, but I don't foresee myself relying on him. He's going to be very much a backup option, which means we've got players like Naby Keita, Nathan Phillips, Roberto Firmino. Those players are out of contention. We do have Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, who would be a decent player, but again, out for up to 4 months. Down as a regular starter, he will not be that for us whatsoever in the nicest way. I love the guy, but it's not going to happen. And then we have Fabio Carvalho, who has made some inroads this season in real life, but he's going to be going out on loan 100%. I think I'm going to commit to this formation. I think we're going to go with it. I'm intrigued to see what we can do. I think Darwin Núñez up here as the pressing forward would be decent in the long term. But for now, I think Diogo Jota, when he's fit, can do that. We know for a fact that Mo Salah can do that as the more attacking-minded player as well. So we're going to do this. I think we're going to go with that. In terms of the way we play, it's very much a gegenpress-inspired system. We're not going to, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're looking at narrow. We might try and keep it as wide possibly, but I like playing narrow usually. Playing out of defence. Short, slightly zippy-passy. Zippy-passy, that's a phrase apparently. Passing into space. Playing for set pieces because we've got some great players. We've got some big lads who can go up and do a job for us. We're pressing all over the shop. We're distributing out to our centre-backs who can get it out further. And then we're trapping players outside, but I don't really care if they cross the ball in because we've got 6'4" players, 6'5" players who can head it out. While doing a high pressing line, we're triggering the press most often, not all the time, but quite often. I'm content with this if it works, but it is a big if. Right, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to look at putting some players on the transfer list, and then we're going to come up with a plan of the type of players that we're going to be targeting. I'll see you in a moment. I've bid the bullet. We're committing to this formation. We are part of the way through pre-season. We're on the 16th of July already, and we have made 1 signing so far. I was hoping to have got a few more across the line, but there is 1 more incoming that's been confirmed. I've just delayed it just to see whether there's any other options out there. But that player we brought in is Alessandro Bastoni. I'm trying to think whether I brought him in at Barcelona or whether I brought him in one of the rebuilds in FM22. I can't remember whether I brought him in Chelsea maybe. I'm sure I've brought him in somewhere at some point, but it's because I love this guy. I think he's an absolutely superb defender. Brought him in. I don't know if he's going to start. He's agreed to be a squad player, so he will be in the rotation. But now we have defensive options for those 3 places of Van Dijk, Matip, Canate, I forgot his name for a second then, Joe Gomez, Bastoni, and then we've got the emergency options of Roberto Firmino, Jordan Henderson, and Nate Phillips if he stays at the club. So I think defensively, centre-back-wise, we're done. We're good. Harvey Elliott, I was kind of dismissing, but to be honest with you, as a forward-thinking player, he's got a lot of options, actually. Can play as the attacking midfielder that we want. Can play as a central midfielder as well as out wide. He's actually a player who will be coming a lot of use, I think, as will James Milner. I mean, he's currently out on that wing-back position at the moment, but, I mean, the coverage he gives is absolutely insane. So, as long as he stays useful, I'm happy to keep him in the squad. We're definitely not going to look to move him on. But the other midfielder, well, the other player we're looking to come in is a midfielder, and it is Mikel Merino. The main reason I went for him, I'm not going to lie, is because Man City was sniffing around him. I do think he is a very good player. I don't know necessarily whether he improves us that much. I mean, I look at him and think he's a playmaker, but he seems to think he's a ball-winning midfielder. I disagree entirely. It's difficult because Merino, I feel like, is a better player to have in there against teams who are going to combat us, but Thiago is an absolute superstar. But then Merino is a few years younger, so I don't know, maybe there is something to it. But he'll be a good option to play in both of those roles. Again, we're not looking for someone to necessarily replace Thiago, unless an absolute superstar comes available. But at the moment, we don't have the money to do that. But I think he'd be more than adequate. But I have delayed it because I want to see if there are any other good options out there. But the problem is, we cannot move on Keita or Firmino. Firmino is currently in negotiations to go out because we've made it off for João Felix, where we're just asking for a straight swap. I don't know whether that will work or not. Hopefully it will. That would definitely solve the forward issue because we'd be bringing in a new forward and getting rid of the one that I don't want. If we get stuck with Firmino, though, it's not the end of the world. He's still a decent player. I'd like to freshen things up a little bit. So it is what it is. Naby Keita's frustrating, though, because the only club that's been in for him is Newcastle, and he is not interested. However, we have had a falling out with him, and I'm hoping that he's going to get the wheels moving on a move for him. Hopefully. Worst case scenario, we loan him out, we get his wages off the books. That's the other thing we can do. We might have to have a think about moving other players on who we don't necessarily want to move on. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But so far in pre-season, this is how it's looking. We've won every game. That big battering of Marine in the middle standing out like a sore thumb. But this formation's looked good. We've switched it up to attacking as well, just to see if that pumps a few more goals past teams. It's done pretty well. Mo Salah's been playing pretty well as well, both as the attacking midfielder and as the striker. He can do both in equal measure. Darwin Núñez as well has looked pretty decent, pretty handy, which has been good to see. We'll carry on forward. We'll see if we can make some more changes to this squad. Remember, there's still a few changes I want. I want a midfielder. I want a striker. Probably an attacking midfielder as well. Definitely a right wing back. That's been something that hasn't come up yet, but hope that one turns up, hopefully. Worst case, again, we do have James Milner. And also, remember, Fabinho can play there as well. Just try to stifle a cough there, pardon me. Let's not panic if we can't bring in the exact players that we want, because we've got enough options in this squad. Right, let's go ahead and let's see whether we can do any more to this team. Well, it is time for the opening day of the season, and I wish I had more news to bring to you, but I really don't. We haven't made any more transfers. There's a variety of reasons for that. There's a few deals we were making that we decided weren't the right deals. There's a few deals that just didn't work out, and we couldn't get the players over the line. And there's still some deals that are ongoing, but as it stands, with fitness being as it is, this is the 11 that we've got going into the season. Alisson is finally fit again, but he's only played one game for the under-21s. I don't really want to throw him in. So Adrian has played one game for us. Remember, we had the Community Shield. And to be honest, I'm okay with him going into the first game against Arsenal. You watch, he'll concede a bunch now. But this is the 11 that's going to be going in. The formation seems to have worked reasonably well. I don't know how it will do all season, but we are sticking with it. Roberto Firmino has had a bid in for him. Again, no players really have gone out either, as well as no players coming in other than Bastoni. We've got an offer in for Firmino. It's a loan offer. We've counter-offered with a permanent offer. Imagine how that's going to go. But there is more interest in Firmino now. From Newcastle is the biggest one for transfer. They wanted Keita. They didn't want to pay for him. Hopefully they'll want to pay for Firmino. We still have a bunch of players out injured, though, including with that now is Jordan Henderson, who's going to be out for up to 9 weeks, which is disappointing. But both Jota and Matip both nearly back. Curtis Jones was in the under-21s. I'd forgotten about Curtis Jones completely, but once he's back, we'll have another really good option as well. So I think once we've got a full squad of fit players, we actually won't need as many transfers as we think we will. But I still would like someone in either the midfield, attacking midfield, or striker. Maybe not one in each position, but one who maybe can do 2 or 3 of them. Which leads me to the transfers I'm currently looking at. So, there's a mix of them. First of all, we've been trying to get James Maddison in. The last offer we had was rejected. The first one we had in was accepted, but we couldn't come up to personal terms with James. We've tried another offer. It's not worked. I might go back in for him, actually, because I kind of really would fancy him, if I'm being completely honest. Let's put in a little bit more, and let's see whether they'll be interested in that. They're not interested. They're really not interested, are they? I mean, let's put a little bit more. I don't know whether we'll accept this because this will be a lot of money to pay. But I would be interested in trying to bring him in if we can. Because, again, he can play in that midfield spot. as the playmaker. His tackling's 11. The marking's not the best, but his tackling's 11. Decent enough teamwork. Work rate's pretty good. He'd be a decent player to have in that midfield as a slightly attacking option, and we could play him further forward as well. Ruben Neves is another one. He would just be for the midfield. He'd be a playmaker. He would be an option to put in there instead of Thiago. Not necessarily very mobile. Less mobile than Thiago, definitely. Not the most brave player, and I don't know whether he's actually injury prone. He's not, no, but I remember he has had a horrible injury in the past, hence the lack of bravery. But he'd be a decent player. He'd do a job for us. And then the other player is someone who could actually do all three positions that we need to a degree. He's a 3-star player. I think he's only got 4-star potential, 4-star potential, but he's a solid player. Pedro Gonçalves. He would be sensational. I used him in FM22, I think, towards the end of it. Can't remember what the save was that we used him in, but I remember him being very good. Oh, no, it was Villa. I think it was Villa. I think we might have signed him for Villa. I can't remember. But he was very good, so we'd bring him in. That would be pretty cool. He would predominantly probably be one of those players, and his natural position is as a shadow striker, but he can play in the midfield. He's got decent enough passing and flair and all that kind of stuff. He could do the playmaking role reasonably well, but he would be more of an offensive playmaker. But, of course, he could also play as a striker. He could do the deep line forward role relatively well. He'd give us another option in those positions. And at the moment, in terms of positionally, Salah and Luis Diaz are both fit, and obviously when we got all our players fit, I'd like to think that Mohamed Salah will go back to this position. So we have a position here that is empty. Harvey Elliott can play there. Jones and Jota can both play there as well. Oxlade-Chamberlain can as well. So we'd have a lot of options if we did sign him. But then again, Oxlade-Chamberlain could go in the midfield, could play as the playmaker. No problem at all. I'll be honest with you, I'm tempted to move him on. Might do that, we might not, I don't know. But I think out of all of those options, if we could get James Maddison in, that would be the one I would prefer. Right, we'll go through to the end of deadline day. We'll see what the squad looks like at that point. We'll see how our start to the Premier League season has been. And then we'll do the big sim all the way through to the halfway point of the season. Or possibly the start of January. I'm not too sure which one we'll do. Because of this season being the weird one with the World Cup in, the halfway point doesn't really line up with the start of the January transfer window. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I can't remember what we did for the Barcelona save, to be honest with you, but cross that bridge when we come to it, and I'll be back with you at the end of the deadline day. Well, the transfer window is finally closed, and oh boy, did we finally get some deals over the line. Let's quickly show you those before we go into anything else. Sale-wise, we did finally get those two big sales done. Naby Keita has gone, of all places, to Real Madrid. He's gone there for £19.75 million, so we have made a massive loss on him. We've paid slightly more than Leipzig did when they bought him from Salzburg. We've made a massive loss on him. Not going to lie, I don't care. I'm not the one who signed him in the first place. He probably would have been alright for us if we'd kept him. I'll be completely honest, he'd have probably been fine. He's got some decent stats. He's got the makings of a good player. Just, it's probably real life bias that probably affected me a little bit. He would have been a good backup player in that playmaking role, but I just fancied a bit of freshening up in the midfield. Like I've said, I just fancied freshening the team up a little bit. And then the other player who we've sold, you won't know who it was who was trying to move on, finally has gone over the line. Roberto Firmino, he's gone to Newcastle. We actually got the deal over the line just after we played Newcastle. Since then, he's played a couple of games, well, started a couple of games, come on the bench from a couple of games as well. And he's got an assist so far. He's looked like he's done all right for them. So he's someone who, again, we probably could have held on to, but 30 years old. His natural fitness is high, so we probably would have retained his ability, but again, we just wanted to refresh things. Total £35.5 million, split over two costs of, I think it was 17 or 18.25 million or 17.75, something like that. But thank you for your service, Bobby Firmino. Once those deals got over the line, we were more confident to put some transfers out there, and make transfers we did. First of all, new right back, Riddle Barku. He's coming as a backup, simple as that. We just wanted someone who's going to be there as an option should we have Trent out of the team, either from the right back position or maybe he'd go in the midfield. But funnily enough, Riddle Barku can play there as well. So if we decided we wanted to experiment with Trent in the middle, we've got a right back. And we've still got James Milner as well, so that works. But he's decent enough. He's not going to be starting for us. He's already made 3 substitute appearances. And actually, he's looked all right in them. So I'm pretty happy with that one. Then the other two, you kind of, I think, already knew about. The first one is Pedro Gonçalves. We've signed him. He's already scored his first goal for us in 2 appearances. He already looks really good in that shadow striker role. That's the way we've used him. But again, we could use him as a striker if we needed to. And we could also use him in the middle of the park as a playmaker as well. And then the final signing, we ended up going with Ruben Neves. I desperately tried to get James Maddison. I also was looking at Thomas Soucek. which I know might sound like a bit of a weird one. If I can actually type, that would help. It might sound like a bit of a weird one, but actually, look at him. As a defensive-minded midfielder, bloke's a brick wall. The only problem was, if I'm being honest, we've got Jordan Henderson who does the ball-winning midfielder role. So really, we needed someone who could play that role as well as playmaker. Now, Ruben Neves, we've had to agree that he is going to be a playmaker for us, and that is the role we're going to be using him in. Which is a bit of a frustration because we could have used him as a more defensive-minded midfielder if we wanted to, because he's got the stats for it. But for now, until we get the thing saying that he's happy that he's been used as a playmaker, we're going to have to use him as a playmaker. But we can juggle the other players that we've got in the squad around that, so that's not a problem at all. But they're the 3 signings we've made, which means that the squad currently is looking like this. Now, it's been a bit juggled around because of the games that we've played, but it's a pretty good squad. I mean, we've got Curtis Jones, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Jordan Henderson all to come back from injury. Jota has just returned from injury. Kelleher as well is just returning from injury as well. We also do have Joel Matip who's back from injury too. But if we were to set this up into a strongest 11 with the players that we've currently got available, I'm not 100% sure which way around I'd do everything. I would like to think that I would be starting Jota, and we maybe put Jota as an advanced forward, but it would be something probably like that. Alisson's back from injury as well, I've got to mention that. But it would be something like that, I think, our strongest 11 to start with. And really, the only starting player who we've got who was not here before we joined is Bastoni. The other players we signed, Neves, Gonçalves, and Baku, they are definitely squad players. But I feel like that is the area that Liverpool have needed the most investment in. They needed more squad depth. And then we've got attacking options plenty when we've got both Oxlade and Curtis Jones back from injury. They will both slot into these roles and these roles as well. And we'll have so much squad depth that we'll probably have to move players on in January. Speaking of January, still got £22 million in the bank. We can improve this squad even more in January, especially if we get players who have a fallout. Because remember, after this point with Simin, we don't know what the assistant manager is going to do in that meantime period. He might upset a lot of players and we might have to move some people on in January. If we do, it's not that big of a problem. I don't typically make signings in January, but if we have to, we've got the money and we've got the players to sell as well. I mean, Oxlade-Chamberlain would be one I'd look at. Curtis Jones I'd like to use, but again, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We can always move him on. Harvey Elliott, I think, is probably the one we'd rather focus on out of the two of them. But that is a pretty healthy looking squad to me. I'm pretty happy with it, especially because it's been ridiculous in the game. And yeah, you're reading that, right? Virgil van Dijk scored hat-tricks, back-to-back hat-tricks, identical hat-tricks as well. Corner, took his penalty. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really good to see. Trent as well scored 2 free kicks this season, and they've both been absolute worldies of free kicks. And you can see that Pedro Gonçalves goal there as well. So we've had a ridiculously good start to the season, and now we just see how things go. Just to quickly mention as well, Champions League group. It's us, it's Ajax, it's Napoli, it's Celtic. We should be getting out of that group, really. We should be getting out of that group. Napoli and Ajax. I mean, Ajax are a good team, but they're not as good as they once were. Napoli are a decent team in Italy, but they're not on the same level as Liverpool are, really, if being honest, and Celtic are Celtic. So I would imagine that it's going to be us and either Ajax or Napoli. One of those two. And then it will be Celtic probably finish bottom of that group, unfortunately. It's a bit of a group of death for those guys, but for us, it should be relatively comfortable. I haven't really talked about what the aim of this season is, to be honest with you. I've just thought about that. The aim of this season, we definitely want to win the Premier League, and we want to give the Champions League a good run as well. But I think the most important thing is we want to win the Premier League, because Manchester City have had a bit of a domination of it in recent times. Obviously, Liverpool won it that year just there, the first in their history. Manchester City are one of the dominant forces in Premier League history. Something fun to note as well, Virgil van Dijk is currently the top goal scorer in the league. He's outscored Erling Haaland. Let that sink in for a second. But we are going to simulate forward. We'll come back just after that Crystal Palace game. We'll assess how that half of the season's gone. We'll assess whether we need to do anything in the squad. And then we'll carry on to the end of the season. That sounds like a plan to me. So I will see you just after that Crystal Palace game. And that is 19 games played. We are at the official halfway point of the season. And we're not top, but we're not too far away. We're 6 points, off the top of the table. Arsenal, just like they are in real life. So There must be something to this Arsenal team that Mikel Arteta's built, both in-game and in real life. They are top of the table by 6 points. They have won 2 more games than us. We have lost 2 more games than them, but we have by far and away the best goal difference in the league. We have scored goals for fun. Manchester City, interestingly, not even in the Champions League places. They're currently 5th. Good to see Aston Villa and Wolves both in the Europa League places as well. Midlands clubs represents. But we have got 2 of the best players in the league, all 3 of the top assist makers, 1 of the top goal scorers in the league in Darwin Núñez, which was a bit of a surprise, I have to say. And that is the team that we currently have at the moment. And as you can see, a lot of these players have gone up in ability. If we put Thiago in there, you can see, I mean, that's just a good team. And what I like about it is, yeah, sure, we've added new signings in. But really, the bulk of what we've done is we've changed the system. It's still a gegenpress, but we've done some tactical fiddling, and I think it has freshened things up, and I do think it has worked out. I mean, certainly 3 losses in a season ain't bad. They lost against, let's have a look, shall we? So, they lost against Ajax in the Champions League. That was the first loss. We also drew against Tottenham just before that, after the transfer window shut. Then we lost it against Napoli, so it looks like the Champions League might have been a bit of a tough thing. Drew against Villa, sad times, but also happy times for me. And then our first loss of the season was actually against Manchester City, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. Eventually, it looks like we might have got through the Champions League. Have we got Champions League on here? We have. God, Bayern Munich. All right, we won't look at that just yet. But yeah, we got through the Champions League. That was okay. But then actually the next 2 losses, the reason why we're currently not doing so well is that we just haven't started the season that well since the World Cup. I mean, we won in the EFL Cup 4th round, but then after that, Leeds United and Man United both beating us. Bit of a disappointment, if I'm honest, but then we have just battered Crystal Palace 7-0. 4 goals from Darwin Núñez, 2 from Salah, and Bastoni getting 1, which I would assume was a corner. That's utterly ridiculous. 7-0, that is utterly ridiculous. In terms of the players that we've had, let's have a look at the top appearance makers. Luis Diaz is actually one of them, 9 goals, 11 assists. He's looking pretty sharp. Alisson's next with 24. Of course, he missed the first couple of games. 9 clean sheets in that. It's not actually that great, really, but it's not too bad. Bastoni then is next, along with Virgil van Dijk. These 2 absolutely superb. Doesn't look like Virgil scored since that opening flurry of goals. I'm sure he was on 11 there. Trent's having a ridiculous season with 15 assists and 3 goals. Darwin Núñez, as mentioned, 22 starts, 2 substitution appearances. He's got 22 goals and 2 assists. Not bad at all. He's got goal contribution per game at the moment. Robertson having a good season. Thiago looking good. Pedro Gonçalves having a really decent season as well as an option in there. 20 games played. 8 goals, 5 assists. That's pretty good. Fabinho looks like he's been a fixture, as has Canate. Matit's played quite a few. Salah hasn't, but then he did have an injury. So I wonder whether he might have picked up an injury or 2 along the way. So, I mean, his fitness still doesn't look great. So maybe that has something to do with it. But to be fair, 9 goals and an assist in 10 games is pretty good going. Ruben Neves has made a few appearances, as has Jordan Henderson. Again, he did have an injury. Joe Gomez, not playing a lot of games. Tsimikas has got a knock. Ridal Baku, not played that much. Neither has Harvey Elliott. I'm a bit surprised at that. Diogo Jota has played now that he's fit again. 12 substitution appearances. Only the 6 goals. Sorry, the 2 goals. James Milner, alienated, it says, so it looks like he might not be very happy with his position at the club. But it does look like he's the only one who's not very happy. Everyone else at the moment, touch wood, is okay. I've got to be honest, I don't necessarily think we need to add anything else to this team. I think we can probably go through to the end of the season now and just see whether this team can turn things around and overtake Arsenal. Because Arsenal, in a nice way, they've only lost 1 game all season. I don't think that squad is going to be strong enough to carry that sort of form on. So I think we're just going to go for it. Let's go to the end of the season. Let's see whether we can win the Premier League or win a trophy. I'll take a trophy. 2nd place in the league and a trophy. I'd be okay with that. Let's see whether that happens. Well, the moment has come to discover how well or not well we have done. I have already seen it, and I thought I'd hide it a little bit by bringing you the financial screen. However, I did think I'd show you the financial screen as well. What kind of baffles me a little bit about this, just a little bit, is that our overall balance is about 100 million less than what we started with, and yet somehow we've still made a profit. I really don't know how that works. Football finances, let me know. I'm kind of gutted we're not doing another season, because £132 million is very tasty. I might do a second season, you know, because that is some. I can do some damage with that as a wage budget. I might do a second season and just see whether we can do better with one more year in the club. But we have reached the end of the league season and we didn't win the league. We came second, which, to be fair, I will say, we're only 1 point off the top. We've battered everyone on goal difference. It is a loss and a draw that's done it. We won the same amount of games as Arsenal. They just lost one less game. So when you think of it like that, I think we've done pretty well. Bearing in mind, the board only wanted us to qualify for the Champions League. We've done that. In fact, we've achieved all of the things that they wanted us to achieve in terms of the things that we were being judged on. And we did also win the Community Shield, remember. So we have won a trophy this year. But in terms of how things have gone in this second half of the season, I'm going to edit between them so I don't spoil anything. So, first of all, you've already seen the Premier League. We'll come back and look at the Premier League in a bit more detail in a moment. But we'll go with the FA Cup. And confirm in the FA Cup we did not get to the final. We got to semi-final though. We got knocked out by Leeds United of all teams. Manchester City knocked out Manchester United. So that sets up a Man City Leeds United final in the FA Cup, which is kind of mad. Nice to see, however, Pedro Gonçalves, second best player in the FA Cup, which is pretty good going. Do you have anyone on the top goal scorer charts? Darwin Núñez is on there. He's had a really good season. Mo Salah's up there as well. They're both on the list, which is good to see. Anyone on the assist list? Pedro Gonçalves. That's why he's had a good season. What about clean sheets? Did we keep any clean sheets? Not enough to be considered. All right. Well, defensively, we obviously weren't that good. But it's fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Remember, we were challenging for the FA Cup. We didn't have to win it, so that's something. Right. Carabao Cup. Carabao Cup, we went one better. We got to the final, but it was a loss against Manchester United. They beat us 2-1 in the final. Let's have a quick look at it here. So it looks like we had an early penalty that Ruben Neves missed. And then Christian Eriksen scored. We equalised. And a 91st minute winner from Casemiro. That's actually heartbreaking. And we were the better team as well. We were the better team. That is absolutely heartbreaking. Trent and Ruben did not turn up in this game. That's a bit disappointing, but gave it our best. What can we say? What can we say? We'll have another closer look at the league. And again, I think for a first season, I mean, Jurgen Klopp in his first season didn't finish second, so I mean, to be fair, he inherited a team that was pretty woeful at that point, so it's not really a fair comparison. But we've done pretty well, I think. 28 wins, 5 draws, 5 losses. Those losses coming against a weird selection of teams. Brentford, Wolves, Manchester United, Leeds and Manchester City. None of them against Arsenal, which is quite interesting. However, I'll show you the schedule with all of the matches in a moment. Draw against Arsenal. Just imagine. We win that game, we're champions. That is all that separates us and Arsenal, really. And we did end up beating Arsenal on this list of games. Obviously, we can't see it on here because it's only showing a selection of them. But we obviously did beat Arsenal in that other game if it doesn't come up on the loss here. So we've done pretty well, I think. In terms of goal scorers in the league, Erling Haaland, as you would expect, top goal scorer. Mo Salah and Darwin Núñez, second and third respectively, with 28 and 23 goals respectively. I think they've done really well, actually, both of them. And then we've still got Virgil van Dijk on 14 goals. He scored the same amount of goals as Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's done it in 7 less games. No, he hasn't. I've got that wrong. I've just realised. I'm looking at age and thinking that's appearances. No, he's done it in a lot more games, let's be fair. But still, same amount of goals as Cristiano Ronaldo. He's been a threat. And Luis Diaz chipped in with 13 goals as well. 10 for Pedro Gonçalves. And that is all of our goal scorers. There's nice to see Alexis McAllister on here with 10 goals. I was looking at him in the summer as a signing. If we go back and have a look at the assists as well. We know Trenton... Andrew Robertson are going to be top, but Trent is top with 26 assists. That is insane. And if he didn't get those, Andrew Robertson would have 14. And if he didn't have those, Luis Diaz would have 11. Do you have anyone near the bottom of the list? No, we don't. But that's fine, because we got those 3, which is delightful. In terms of average rating, Mo Salah is the best player in the league. And we've got a bunch of players not too far down as well. Luis Diaz, Gonçalves, Núñez, Van Dijk, Trent, Robertson. And then even further down, Thiago, Tsimikas, Alisson. I mean, Alisson's not even anywhere near the clean sheets here. Well, he's just underneath. He's 4th. So, Aaron Ramsdale. So the reason why Arsenal won the league is because of their defence. 20 clean sheets by Aaron Ramsdale. 18 from Ederson and De Gea. And then it's just 16 for Alisson. But he missed 2 games at the start of the season. He's played every other game. So if he had those 2 games, he could be second on the list. And again, I just have... Well, no, it wouldn't actually, because we won the first couple of games of the season where we didn't play, so it wouldn't have had any effect on it whatsoever. But we've done very well, I think. If we have a look at it a little bit closer, goals for, we are Centurions, 108 goals for, 30 against. We've conceded only one more than Arsenal, so actually we've done ridiculously well there. We've got the joint second best defence in the league alongside Man City. Man City, ironically, their issue has been scoring goals. They're the third best goal scorers in the league. Got Erling Haaland up front, but they don't have Van Dijk at the back. Right, you're probably thinking, Stu, you haven't shown us Champions League. Dear viewer, you are correct. It is the day after the final game of the league season, I believe. If I go all the way through, show you. Oh, yeah, no, we're going the right way. If we go all the way to the end of the season, so 28th, it's actually the same day as that game. So that game has happened, that game is done, 38 games played. Which means if there was a Champions League final that we wanted to be interested in, that would be coming in 2 weeks' time, wouldn't it? You like that Champions League final? Yeah, we've made it to the Champions League final. So let's just sum this season up in a different way. Won the Community Shield, came second in the Premier League, Carabao Cup final, FA Cup semi-final, Champions League final. Only won one of those trophies so far, but that is very impressive. For a first season, that's ridiculously impressive. Before we even get to that, though, Mo Salah with 10 goals. Second best player in the tournament. Pedro Gonçalves with the joint most assists in the competition. Clean sheet-wise, I'm going to assume that Alisson is nowhere near, actually. He's not had a good time in the Champions League, actually. But, yeah, we have got to the Champions League final. So we know that the group... So I feel... Did we show you the group stage? I'm trying to think whether we showed you the group stage. I think we showed it very, very briefly, but... You can see, we qualified alongside Ajax. It was Napoli and Celtic who didn't get through. I don't think we did show you this now I'm thinking about it. But we ended up winning 4, and no one got a draw, actually. It was either wins or losses in this group, which was insane. But we ended up going up. Again, we'll show you the fixture list in a moment. But we go through as group winners. We then go through to the round of 16. And it's us versus Bayern Munich. And it's a 6-3 overall defeat of Bayern Munich. Battered them in the second leg, knocking them out. Quarter-final was then against Frankfurt, 5-2 overall. I mean, you'd expect that, to be honest with you. Then the semi-final, Barcelona, 4-0, 4-2 overall. So that means Liverpool lost the first leg 2-0. And they came back and won it 4-0 in the second leg. Have a look at this schedule and just have a look through the matches. Just so we can look at that, but we can also look at everything else as well. So we actually battered Arsenal at the beginning of the season, and they got the revenge because they won the title. So... all the way down to here, we beat Crystal Palace 7-0 after that really, really poor run of games there, which we thought was going to cost us. So since then, it's all looking good. I mean, the entire month of January was unbeaten, including a 9-0 battering of Luton, 3-0 against Chelsea, 6-1 against Oxford. It's Oxford United, to be fair. To be fair to Oxford United, they got through to the EFL Cup quarter-final. Good on you, Oxford. That's a great effort. That's an astounding effort, in fact. There's the Barcelona game. So 2-0 in that first leg. Lewandowski with the first half double, but the second leg absolutely destroyed them. It's the Mo Salah show, apparently. Missed a penalty and got a hat-trick. Calm myself down, Mohamed. But all of that leads us to this game here, and I don't really know what to do. Do we just accelerate past it, simulate past it, or do we play the Champions League final? To be fair to the rest of the save, I think we're going to simulate past it, mainly because I think this video is going to be long enough as it is, and even if I put an edited down version of the match in, I think it's going to take far too long. So we're going to skip past the game, and then we'll get the final results of the season. So I'm going to simulate to the day before the game. I'm going to make sure the team is set up, and then when you simulate games, you can actually, if I quickly show you, if I choose to simulate to a day here, you can choose. And I've had it set on as much as... Well, I've had it set on since January, actually, because I realised you could do it. Current match tactics and current team selection when possible. So that will mean that the team that we've got here, assuming everyone's fully fit, will be the team that's used. That first 11 will be the first 11 that's used in the game. Right, I'm going to simulate, and I'll be back with you after the Champions League final, where hopefully we'll have our... what is technically our second trophy of the season, because, again, you know, Community Shield, most important trophy in world football. See you in a minute. Well, here it is, Champions League final time again. We are not playing the game, we are simulating it, but I thought let's experience this together. So just to confirm, that is the 11 that I've set up, and with the settings we've got on holiday, and it is the 11 that will start. Alisson in goal, Matip, Van Dijk and Bastoni in defence, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson as the wing-backs, with Fabinho and Ruben Neves in the middle of the park, and the 3 forwards are Salah and Diaz as shadow strikers. Darwin Núñez up front. Let's simulate forward. Let's do this together and let's see what happens. Current match tactics on, current team selection when possible on. We are returning from holiday literally tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 11th, I believe. It is, yes. Is it the 11th? Oh, I've forgotten now. It is the 11th. I shouldn't have doubted myself then. Stu, why did you doubt yourself? Let's do it. The result might come up underneath the game. And we did it 3-0 in the final. All of the work done in the first half. Salah, Diaz and Núñez, that front 3 of dreams, makes it a successful season. Let's be completely honest. If we hadn't won that, I think it would have been close to one with the amount of finals and semi-finals we got into. I mean, that's a bit disingenuous. I don't know if I'd count that as a double necessarily myself, but obviously the game disagrees with me. But it is a Champions League final win. And, well, that has to make... I mean, it's Liverpool in the Champions League final, as if it was going to be anything else. It's against Milan as well. I just thought about that. Channeled the spirit of 2005 and absolutely dominated them in the process. Mo Salah in the 18th minute with an assist from Virgil van Dijk, of all things. I kind of want to see that goal. Will it let me see it now that I've simulated it? I'd like to think it would. I'd like to see this goal that Van Dijk assisted. I'm assuming it's from a set piece, and Van Dijk's flicked it onto Mo Salah. And we're going to assume it's a near post corner, flicked on, and Van Dijk's at the far post. Exactly what I said it would be. Quite proud of calling that, to be honest with you. Right, well, we have to consider that season a bit of a success. Okay, we didn't win the Premier League, and that was the thing I really did want to win. But as far as the board are concerned, we did all right, because they only wanted us to qualify for the Champions League. We did that with 2 positions in the league to spare. We finished second, finished 1 point off the top of the table. We also won the Champions League, where they wanted us just to challenge for it. We challenged for the FA Cup by getting to semi-final, and they didn't give a toss about these 2 top competitions. So I think, all things considered, we've done really, really well. Gone and won a couple of trophies. Okay, one of them doesn't really matter, but one of them really does. It's the biggest trophy in club football, arguably. We've gone and done it in some style. Mo Salah with 48 goals, Trent with 33 assists. I mean, we can see our player stats here, which is pretty cool. Those 2 that I've just mentioned. Highest average rating is Mo Salah with 7.73. Best pass completion is our goalkeeper, Alisson, with 96. Player of the match awards, 11 of them went to Mo Salah. Naughty Boys Club is Fabinho, Andy Robertson, and Trent. Trent and Andy Robertson both getting sent off at different points, which is a bit of a concern, but it's not my concern anymore. That 127 million... it just looks so appetising. We're not going to do another season of this, but I might do one in my spare time. So if we were going to do that, where would we need to improve? We'd need to bring in another defender, because in the nicest possible way, we've got Joel Matip, who's 31. We've got Van Dijk, who's 32. Who's 31, sorry. Sorry, Virgil. Don't kill me. We'd want to replace Joel, I think, and we'd want to bring in an absolute world-class central defender. I don't know necessarily who we would bring in. We'd probably look to move Thiago on, to be honest. But let's say we did that. And we'd probably bring in another striker, because in the nicest way, Mo Salah, he's 30 years old. To be fair, he's still very, very good. We'd probably bring someone in, actually, for Jota. I don't think Jota has had the best time of it. I think we'd probably look to move him on. Although he's very good in real life, I think we'd move him on. So we'd bring in another striker to come in. Maybe someone else in the attacking midfield position as well. I think this team, with those additions, could potentially win everything. I genuinely think it could. Right, enough of that nonsense. Normal service is going to be resumed on the channel in the next video, because it will be a return of the My Career series at, again, if you've not watched it, cover your ears now, our second club, Tranmere Rovers. Hopefully you enjoy that. Hopefully you have a lovely time with it, and hopefully you've had a lovely time with this video as well. But I will see you in that next episode, and I'll see you in the future for another rebuild as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed today's video, please do leave a like on there for me. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the Football Manager content to come in the future. I've been Stu, you guys have been awesome, and I will catch you in the next video. Cheers.